Chip. Today is the 18th of March 2021. So we're getting towards springtime now, or spring's here. So there's lots of daffodils outside, lots of nice flowers, and the days are getting longer. In England, it's a lot more change in terms of the daylight. So now it's bright at 6 o'clock in the morning and it doesn't get dark until about 7 o'clock at night. And as we go through towards more summertime, it's going to get more and more long days. So by the time we hit the middle of summer, it's going to be around light at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then carries on until 10 o'clock at night, maybe even 11. So that means that you're looking at around 8, 10, maybe 18 or 19 hours of sunlight in one day. So it's pretty crazy, but it does feel nice to have the light back because it's been a long winter with all the coronavirus stuff and all the rest of it. At the moment, things are going okay in England in that respect. I think there's less people getting the virus, and the vaccine's starting to happen. I've not had the vaccine, but Grandma has now, so that's good. And yeah, it's looking better. I hope I can come to see you soon, but I'm still trying to sort out a job situation, so it's not easy at the moment. But I'm still trying my best. Okay, so today I'm going to carry on with Matilda. Like I said in the previous video, I've read it before. It's a good book. I mean, not read it before. I've watched it before on the TV, but I've not read it. And I'm looking forward to reading it, and then hopefully you'll enjoy it at some stage. I think about you all the time, and I hope things are going well in Japan. And I always look forward to Saturday so that I can see you and talk to you. And yeah, I wish I could see you more. And this whole situation is tough, but I'm proud of you. Okay, right. Well, here we go. So, the hat and the super glue. I just want to see how much battery's doing it. So, right, here we go. I've only got 24% battery, so be a bit careful. The following morning, just before the father left for his beastly second-hand car garage, Matilda slipped into the cloakroom and she got hold of the hat he wore each day to work. She had to stand on her toes and reach up as high as she could with a walking stick in order to hook the hat off the peg, and even then she only just made it. There she goes, look. Ooh, she's going to get some super glue. The hat itself was just one of those flat-topped pork pie jobs with a jay's feather stuck in the hat band, and Mr. Wormwood was very proud of it. He thought it gave him a rakish, daring look, especially when he wore it at an angle with his loud checked jacket and green tie. Matilda, holding the hat in one hand and a thin tube of super glue in the other, proceeded to squeeze a line of glue very neatly all around the inside rim of the hat. Then she carefully hooked the hat back onto the peg. Carefully applying the glue just as her father was getting up from the breakfast table. Then she carefully hooked the hat back on the peg with the walking stick. She timed this operation very carefully, applying the glue just as her father was sitting up from the breakfast table. Mr. Wormwood didn't notice anything when he put the hat on, but when he arrived at the garage, he couldn't get it off. Super glue is very powerful stuff. So powerful it would take your skin off if you pulled too hard. Mr. Wormwood didn't want to be scalped, so he had to keep the hat on his head the whole day long. Even when putting sawdust in gearboxes and fiddling the... I think it's going to say speedometer, let's see. Mileages of cars with the electric drill. Look, there's his wife trying to get the hat off. In an effort to save face, he adopted a casual attitude, hoping that his staff would think he actually meant to keep his hat on all day long just for the heck of it, like gangsters do in films. When he got home that evening, he still couldn't get the hat off. "Don't be silly," his wife said. "Come here, I'll take it off for you." She gave the hat a sharp yank. Mr. Wormwood let out a yell, and that rattled the window panes. "Ow!" he screamed. "Don't do that. Let go. You'll take the hat. You'll take half the skin off my head. Matilda, nestling in her usual chair, was watching this performance over the rim of her book with some interest. What's the matter, Daddy? She said. Has your head suddenly swollen or something? The father glared at his daughter with deep suspicion, but said nothing. How could he? Mrs. Wormwood said to him. It must be superglue. It couldn't be anything else. That'll teach you to go around playing around with nasty stuff like that. I expect you were trying to stick another feather in your hat. I haven't touched the flaming stuff, Mr. Wormwood shouted. He turned and looked again at Matilda, who looked back at him with large, innocent brown eyes. Mrs. Wormwood said to him, You read the label on the tube before you start messing with dangerous products. Always follow the instructions on the label. What in heaven's name are you talking about, you stupid witch? Mr. Wormwood shouted, clutching the brim of his hat to stop anyone trying to pull it off him. Do you think I'm so stupid I'd glue the thing to my head on purpose? Matilda said, There's a boy down the road who got some superglue on his finger without knowing it, and then he put his finger to his nose. Uh-oh. Hugo does that a lot, puts his finger in his nose. Hope you don't get superglue. Kids, kiddie. I'm sure you'll be fine. Mr. Wormwood jumped. What happened to him? He spluttered. The finger got stuck inside his nose, Matilda said, and he had to go round like that for a week. People kept saying, Stop picking your nose, and he couldn't do anything about it. He looked an awful fool. Serve him right, Mrs. Wormwood said. He shouldn't have put his finger up there in the first place. It's a nasty habit. If all children had superglue put on their fingers, they'd soon stop doing it. Matilda said, Grown-ups do it too, Mummy. I saw you doing it yesterday in the kitchen. That's quite enough from you, Mrs. Wormwood said, turning back. Mr. Wormwood had to keep his hat on all through supper in front of the television. He looked ridiculous, and he stayed very silent. When he went up to bed, he tried again to get the thing off, and so did his wife, but it wouldn't budge. How am I going to have my shower? He demanded. You have to do it without it, won't you? His wife told him, and later on, as she watched her skinny little husband skulking around the bedroom in his purple striped pyjamas with a pork pie hat on his head, she thought how stupid he looked. Hardly the kind of man a wife dreams about, she told herself. Mr. Wormwood discovered that the worst thing about having a permanent hat on his head was having to sleep in it. It was impossible to lay down comfortably on the pillow. Now do stop fussing around, his wife said to him after he had been tossing and turning for about an hour. I expect it will be loose by the morning, and then it'll slip off easily. But it wasn't loose by the morning, and it wouldn't slip off. So Mrs. Wormwood took a pair of scissors and cut the thing off his head, bit by bit, first the top, then the brim. Where the inner band had stuck to the hair all around the side of the back, she had to chop the hair off right to the skin so that he finished up with a bald white ring around his head, like some sort of monk. And in the front, where the band had stuck directly to the bare skin, there remained a whole lot of small patches of brown leathery stuff that no amount of washing would get off. Oh dear. At breakfast, Matilda said to him, You must try to get those bits off your forehead, Daddy. It looks as though you've got little brown insects crawling all over you. People will think you've got lice. Be quiet, the father snapped. Just keep your nasty mouth shut, will you? All in all, it was a most satisfactory exercise, but it was surely too much to hope that it had taught her father a permanent lesson. He's going to be Zuri, I think, again in the future. What's the next chapter? Let's see. The next chapter is called Obake, the Ghost. I wonder what's going to happen here. Here's the picture. There was comparative calm in the Wormwood household for about a week after the superglue episode. The experience had clearly chastened Mr. Wormwood, and he seemed temporarily to have lost the taste for boasting and bullying. Then suddenly he struck again. Perhaps he had had a bad day at the garage and had not sold enough crummy second-hand cars. There are many things that make a man irritable when he arrives home from work in the evening, and a sensible wife will usually notice the storm signals and will leave him alone until he simmers down. When Mr. Wormwood arrived back from the garage that evening, his face was as dark as thundercloud, and somebody was clearly for the high jump pretty soon. His wife recognized the signs immediately and made herself scarce. He then strode into the living room. Matilda happened to be curled up in an armchair in the corner, totally absorbed in a book. Mr. Wormwood switched on the television. The screen lit up. The programme blared. Mr. Wormwood glared at Matilda. She hadn't moved. She had somehow trained herself by now to block her ears to the ghastly sound of the dreaded box. She kept right on reading, and for some reason this infuriated the father. Perhaps his anger was intensified because he saw her getting pleasure from something that was beyond his reach. "Don't you ever stop reading," he snapped at her. "Oh, hello, Daddy," she said pleasantly. "Did you have a good day?" "What is this trash?" he said, snatching the book from her hands. "It isn't trash, Dad. It's lovely. It's called The Red Pony. It's by John Steinbeck, the American writer. Why don't you try it? You'll love it." "Filth," Mr. Wormwood said. "If it's by an American, it's certain to be filth. That's all they write about." "No, Daddy, it's beautiful. Honestly, it is. It's about..." "I don't want to..." He's ripped it up, hasn't he? That's terrible. What a bad son. "I don't want to know what it's about," Mr. Wormwood barked. "I'm fed up with you reading anyway. Go and find yourself something useful to do." With frightening suddenness, he now began ripping the pages out of the book in handfuls and throwing them in the waste paper basket. What an idiot. Matilda froze in horror. The father kept going. There seemed little doubt that the man felt some kind of jealousy. "How dare she?" he seemed to be saying with each rip of a page. "How dare she enjoy reading books when he couldn't? How dare she?" "That's a library book," Matilda cried out. "It doesn't belong to me. I have to return it to Miss Phelps." "Then you'll have to buy another one, won't you?" the father said, still tearing out pages. "You have to save your pocket money until there's enough in the kitty to buy a new one for your precious Miss Phelps, won't you?" With that, he dropped the now empty covers of the book into the basket and marched out of the room, leaving the telly blaring. What an absolute idiot. Most children in Matilda's place would have burst into floods of tears. She didn't do this. She sat there very still and white and thoughtful. She seemed to know that neither crying nor sulking ever got anyone anywhere. The only sensible thing to do when you are attacked is, as Napoleon once said, to counterattack. Matilda's wonderfully subtle mind was already at work, devising yet another suitable punishment for the poisonous parent. The plan that was now beginning to hatch in her mind depended, however, upon whether or not Fred's parrot was really a good talker, as Fred made out. Fred was a friend of Matilda's. He was a small boy of 6 who lived just around the corner from her, and for days he had been going on about this great talking parrot his father had given him. So the following afternoon, as soon as Mrs. Wormwood had departed in her car for another session of bingo, Matilda set out for Fred's house to... What are they going to do you think? Investigate. She knocked on his door and asked if he would be kind enough to show her the famous bird. Fred was delighted, and he led her up to his bedroom, where a truly magnificent blue and yellow parrot sat in a cage. There he is. in the tool cage. There it is, Fred said. Its name is Chopper. Make it talk, Matilda said. You can't make it talk, Fred said. You have to be patient. It'll talk when it feels like it. They hung around waiting. Suddenly the parrot said, "Hello, hello, hello." It was exactly like a human voice, Matilda said. That's amazing. What else can it say? "Rattle my bones," the parrot said, giving a wonderful imitation of a spooky voice. "Rattle my bones." He's always saying that, Fred told her. What else can he say? Matilda asked. That's about it, Fred said, but it's pretty marvellous, don't you think? It's fabulous, Matilda said. Will you lend him to me just for one night? No, Fred said, certainly not. I'll give you all my next week's pocket money, Matilda said. That was different. Fred thought about it for a few seconds. All right then, he said, if you promise to return him tomorrow. Matilda staggered back to her own empty house, carrying the tool cage in both hands. There was a large fireplace in the dining room, and she now set about. What was she doing? Wedging the cage up the chimney and out of sight. This wasn't so easy, but she managed it in the end. Hello, 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 the bird called down to her. Hello, hello. Shut up, you nut, Matilda said as she went out to wash the soot off her hands. That evening, while the mother and father, the brother, and Matilda were having a supper as usual in the living room in front of the television, a voice came loud and clear from the dining room across the hall. Hello, 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 it said. Harry, cried the mother, turning white. There's someone in the house. I heard a voice. So did I, the brother said. Matilda jumped up and switched off the telly. Shh, she said. Listen. They all stopped eating and sat there very tense, listening. Hello, 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 came the voice again. There it is, cried the brother. It's burglars, hissed the mother. They're in the dining room. I think they are, the father said, sitting tight. Then go and catch them, Harry, hissed the mother. Go out and collar them red-handed. The father didn't move. He seemed in no hurry to dash off and be a hero. His face had turned grey. Get on with it, hissed the mother. They're probably after the silver. The husband wiped his lips nervously with his napkin. Why don't we all go and look together, he said. Come on then, the brother said. Come on, Mum. They're definitely in the dining room, Matilda whispered. I'm sure they are. Matilda knows what's going on. The mother grabbed a poker from the fireplace. The father took a golf club that was standing in the corner. The brother seized a table lamp, ripping the plug out of the socket. Matilda took the knife she had been eating with, and all four of them crept towards the dining room door. The father kept well behind the others. Hello, 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 came the voice again. Come on, Matilda cried, and she burst into the room, brandishing her knife. Stick 'em up, she yelled. We've caught you! The others followed her, waving their weapons. Then they stopped. They stared around the room. There was no one there. There's no one here, the father said, greatly relieved. I heard him, Harry, the mother shrieked, still quaking. I distinctly heard his voice. So did you. I'm certain I heard him, Matilda cried. He's in here somewhere. She began searching behind the sofa and behind the curtains. Then came the voice once again, soft and spooky this time. Rattle my bones, it said. Rattle my bones. They all jumped, including Matilda, who was a pretty good actress. They stared round the room. There was still no one there. It's a ghost, Matilda said. Heaven help us, cried the mother, clutching her husband round the neck. I know it's a ghost, Matilda said. I've heard it here before. This room is haunted. I thought you knew that. Save us, the mother screamed, almost throttling her husband. I'm getting out of here, the father said, greyer than ever. They all fled, slamming the door behind them. The next day, Matilda managed to get a rather sooty and grumpy parrot down from the chimney and out of the house without being seen. She carried it through the back door and ran it with it all the way to Fred's house. Did it behave itself? Fred asked. We had a lovely time with it, Matilda said. My parents adored it. I think that's probably enough for today. Right. I hope you enjoyed it. It's getting there. You wait till what she can do. She's amazing. Um, all right. Well, I hope everything's going well. I love you, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay. Bye bye.